So the way that rooms determine their shape is because of a feature called room bounding. So when I select a room like this bedroom here, and the fact that it shapes around the surrounding geometry, that is the room bounding feature at work there. And most of your major geometric elements have a room bounding setting. So if I select walls, for example, all of the walls will have a room bounding feature, and by default, it is turned on. We also have these room separator lines, which we added manually in an earlier video, and that's what allowed us to shape the living room, as an example, to a custom shape, even though there weren't walls in those locations. So that's another example of room bounding. Well, there are times when an element that is room bounding by default, you would prefer not to be room bounding. So for example, there's this little low height wall that's right here that's maybe dividing this space into two. And maybe I don't want that wall to influence the shape or the size of the room. So if that's the case, you can actually select that wall element and come over here to the properties palette and uncheck room bounding. Now, when you do, notice that the living room now flows right over that wall as if it wasn't even there. So that's a really simple example of customizing room bounding. But let's look at another one that's maybe a touch more practical. Suppose I zoom in on this lower bedroom down here in the corner. And as you can see, I selected it a moment ago. It's got this shape that goes around the closet. And then consequently, that means that we have a second room here that fills in the closet area. Now, that's perfectly fine, but maybe you decided that you don't need a separate closet room, and what you'd rather do is just let the area of the closet be considered part of the bedroom. If that's the case, then what you would want to do is select these two walls here, and I'll just do that with my control key, and then come over here to the properties palette and do what I just did a moment ago and turn off the room bounding for those two walls. When I apply that, it will generate a warning. And it's telling me that I now have multiple rooms in the same enclosed region. Well, what does it mean by that? Well, the bedroom and the closet are now both in the same enclosed space. So it's telling me that one of them is going to be considered redundant, and I could optionally delete that redundant room right here. The trouble is, I don't know which one it considers redundant. Is it the bedroom or the closet? So I want to make sure that I keep the bedroom and lose the closet. So I'm going to ignore this warning by clicking OK. And then that completes the modification. If I deselect the walls and come back and select the bedroom, you can see that it did consider the bedroom to be the dominant room, which is good. That's what I wanted. And notice that it now flows right over the closet and includes that area. If we move nearby where the closet was, notice that it shows a little differently now. So the redundant room is going to have this little dashed box indicator. And if you look over on the properties palette under dimensions, you will see that several of the entries there say redundant room now. Okay, so our closet is now redundant. What do we do about it? Well, let's just delete it. However, when you do, that will generate yet another warning. So this is where it can get a little frustrating. You're just trying to do something simple with your rooms and you're getting all these warnings, and that can be a little bit disruptive, which is why I wanted to go through this process with you. So it says a room was deleted from the model, but it still remains in the project, and you can use a schedule to deal with the problem. So what do they mean by that? Well, let me just click anywhere to dismiss that warning. And we're going to talk about schedule views in detail in a future video. But for now, let's just open up a schedule that already exists here in this project. So if you come over here to the project browser, scroll down, there's a schedules and quantities branch. And there's one right here called room finish schedule. So you just double click that like any other view to open it up. And a schedule is just a list of elements in the model. So as you can see here, we've got a list of all of the rooms. Now, I'd like to put that list side by side with the floor plan. So click back over to the floor plan view, come up here to the View tab and choose Tile Views. And then that puts those side by side. And then you can even change the width here between the two. So I don't need the schedule to be quite as wide as the floor plan. So I'm going to readjust the screen so I can see the whole floor plan over here, and then here's the schedule over here. Now, the way a schedule works is, as I said, it's a list of all the elements in the model, in this case, the rooms. And if you select an element, it will highlight the corresponding element in the model. So notice that I can select the bedroom and it highlights on screen there. Now, here's that closet that we just removed. And the clue in the schedule that it is a redundant room, or in this case now a non-placed room, is that it says not placed. Now, if I were to click over here and do undo so that the closet comes back again, notice that it will say redundant room there. So the reason it said not placed was because I had deleted it, and that made it a non-placed room. But now the schedule is giving us the feedback we need to understand that, right? So that's why it can be nice to have the schedule open. Now, before I remove this permanently, let me show you how you could add it back to the model if you needed to. Okay, so suppose I wanted to place that closet somewhere else in the model. What you would do is click over to the floor plan, go to architecture, click the room tool, and then by default, when you create rooms, you're creating a new room right here. However, notice that any non-placed rooms, and we only have one in this case, the closet, will be listed on here as well. So I could choose the closet from the list, and now I'm placing closet 110 in my model, and I could click somewhere to place it. Now, I don't actually want to place it, so I'm just going to click the modify tool to cancel without doing that, but that's how you could place something that is non-placed back into the model. So you may be wondering why Revit bothers going through all of this. Why not just delete the room? Why is it giving me all this redundant room and non-placed room and everything? Well, if you consider the fact that rooms are invisible elements to begin with, it might be too easy for you to accidentally delete them. So by kind of adding this extra layer of steps here, it's sort of a fail-safe to prevent you from accidentally making mistakes that otherwise would be too easy to make. So whether you like this mechanism or not, I think it actually is in your best interest, and this is why they designed it this way, so that you don't end up deleting rooms that have a lot of data associated with them accidentally. So I do want to get rid of this closet after all. So what I'm going to do is click into the room schedule first, select the closet right here, and then on the ribbon that appears, there's a delete rows button here. You can click that to delete. It will warn you and say, are you sure? Yes, I am. I'll click OK. And now you see that closet has been removed from the list. Okay, so now we have actually deleted that room. Now I've got one similar scenario up here for the master bath. Maybe I don't want the master bath and the linen closet to be two separate rooms. I want the master bath to include the linen closet. Well, now that we know that we're going to have all those messages and warnings and everything, you could approach it a little differently. What you could do is select the linen closet here in the schedule first, delete it. That will warn you, just like it did a moment ago. Click OK. It removes from the model and the schedule. And now that means when I change the bounding elements for the master bath, it won't generate a warning. So we can easily come over here and select this wall, scroll down, turn off room bounding. Now the master bath flows into the linen closet space. But notice it's also flowing into this little shaft area here. So assuming that you don't want that, then there's one more step. We'll go to modify. We'll use our split element tool. We're going to split that wall right at that location, then come back and select this portion and turn the room bounding back on again. And now we've got the master bath shaped the way that we want, and including the area of the linen closet.